It's well past closing at the Central Saloon, the kind of late hour when Pioneer Square finally exhales and the streets outside settle into that deep, echoing quiet. Inside, the bar sits in a low amber glow from the bulbs behind the counter, their light catching the edges of old posters, framed photographs, and the worn grain of the wood that held up this place for more than a century. You start your final walkthrough, moving past the tables and the long stretch of bar top that's seen everything from loggers and sailors to musicians tuning up before their first real show. The floorboards creak under the steps. Not unusual here, but tonight the sound feels different, sharper, like the building is reacting to you, or to something else moving just out of sync. You pause at the stage. Even in the dark, you can feel the weight of the room shift around it. The cables coiled neatly on the floor, the mic stands leaning in the corner, the faint smell of old wood and spilled beer soaked deep into the boards. The stage has carried decades of sound, some of it loud enough to shake the walls, some of it quiet enough to feel like a secret. Take a breath and move toward the back hallway. The air changes as soon as you step into it, cooler, stiller, like the temperature drops a few degrees without warning. You check the storage room, empty. You check the back corner where the shadows always seem a little heavier. Still, but the feeling doesn't go away. You turn toward the staircase that leads up to the balcony. Halfway up, you hear it. A single footstep above you, slow, measured, like someone shifting their weight to get a better look. You stop at the stairs, listening. Another creak, this one softer, like someone leaning against the railing. You reach the top and look across the balcony. The railing is just a silhouette in the dim light, but for a moment, just long enough to register, you see the outline of someone standing there, shoulders squared, head tilted slightly downward, watching the room below. You blink, and the figure's gone. You take a step back, heart picking up, scanning the shadows for movement. Nothing shifts, nothing stirs, but the air feels different now, colder than the railing, colder near the railing, warmer near the stairs, like someone just walked past you a moment before you arrived. You turn your head back down. Halfway to the bottom, a bar stool on the main floor slides an inch across the wood. No one else is here. No doors opened, no draft, just the quiet, and the sense that the Central Saloon isn't quite done with the night. Welcome back to Haunts of the Pacific Northwest. I'm Kevin, and tonight we're stepping into one of Seattle's most iconic bars, the Central Saloon. If Merchant's Cafe is the brooding elder of Pioneer Square, the Central is the loud, stubborn survivor, the kind of place that's seen everything and still keeps the lights on. This bar has been here since the early 1890s, and it shows in all the best ways. The wood is worn, the walls are thick with stories, and the energy is unmistakable. And like any place that's been around this long, it's collected a few guests who never quite left. The Central Saloon opened its doors in 1892, at a time when Seattle was still rebuilding from the Great Fire, and Pioneer Square was the rough, beating heart of the city. This wasn't the polished waterfront we know today. It was muddy streets, sawdust floors, and a constant churn of people chasing fortune or trying to outrun their past. Saloons were everywhere back then, but the Central stood out. It wasn't fancy, it wasn't trying to be. It was a place where loggers came in straight from the camps, where sailors stumbled in after work after weeks at sea, where miners heading north for the Klondike gold rush stopped for one last drink before disappearing into the wilderness. The bar was loud, smoky, and alive. The kind of place where you could hear 5 different languages in a single night. When Prohibition hit, the Central didn't close. It rebranded itself as a soft drink parlor, which fooled absolutely no one. Behind the counter, the real business continued. Locals knew the code, and the bar survived on a mix of stubbornness, community loyalty, and a healthy disregard for the rules. The building itself seemed to absorb that energy, that refusal to go quiet, even when the law said it should. Over the decades, the Central weathered fires, floods, and the constant shifting of Pioneer Square. The neighborhood changed around it, from a frontier district to a skid road, from a neglected corner of the city to a historic landmark. But the bar stayed put. The walls darkened, the floors wore down, and the stories piled up. Then came the music. Long before Seattle became a global name in rock, the Central was one of the few places where new bands could get a foothold. The stage was small, the sound system was rough, and the crowds were unpredictable. But it was a place to play, and that was enough. In the late 80s and early 90s, the Central became a launch pad. Bands like Soundgarden, Mudhoney, Alice in Chains, and even Nirvana played here when they were still figuring out who they were. The room shook with sound that didn't fit neatly into any genre yet. Raw, loud, and full of something electric. The kind of energy that leaves a mark on a place. And through all of it, the frontier days, the prohibition years, the music scene, the late night crowds, the Central Saloon kept going. The building aged, but it never slowed down. It held on to its history the way old places do, quietly, stubbornly, and with the sense that the past is never as far away as it seems. Maybe that's why the hauntings here feel different. Not tragic or violent, just present. Like the people who spent their lives in this bar never really stopped coming back. For a place as old as the Central, the hauntings aren't loud or dramatic. They're pretty subtle. The kind of moments that make you stop mid-step and wonder if the building is trying to tell you something. The most common sighting is the man on the balcony. Staff closing up for the night have seen him leaning on the railing, looking down at the main floor like he's watching the last set of the evening. Sometimes he's just a shape, a darker patch of shadow against the dim light. Other times, people describe the outline of shoulders, the tilt of a head, the posture of someone who's been standing there a long time. He never moves, never reacts, he just watches. And when you look directly at him, he's gone. One bartender said she saw him twice in the same night, once on the balcony, and later reflected faintly in the glass of the front door as she was locking up. Not a face, not a figure, just the impression of someone standing behind her where no one should have been. The back hallway is where the energy shifts. People describe sudden cold spots that move, not stationary chill, but something that passes by you, like someone brushing past your shoulder. Others have heard footsteps behind them, slow and steady, matching their pace until they turn around and find the hallway empty. One server said she heard someone whisper her name from the dark end of the corridor. Not loud or threatening, just close enough to make her freeze. When she stepped forward to check, the air felt heavier, like someone had just been standing there a moment before. The stage has its own stories. Musicians packing up at night have heard the faint sound of a single note, one string plucked on a guitar that wasn't plugged in, or a soft tap on a drum when no one was near it. The kind of sound that makes you stop and look around, wondering if someone else is still in the room. The sound booth has its moments too. Lights flicker in pattern, that don't match the wiring. Meters jump for no reason. The faint hum rises and falls like someone adjusting equipment that isn't turned on. One sound tech said he felt someone step up beside him during a late night teardown. The floorboards shifted, the air moved, but when he turned, the booth was empty. And then there are the physical moments: a bar stool sliding a few inches across the floor, a shift, a glass shifting on its own, a coaster flipping over when no one is near it. These aren't big movements, nothing dramatic, but they're deliberate, intentional. The kind of small gestures that feel like someone trying to get your attention without making a scene. What makes the Central's hauntings unique is that they don't feel tied to tragedy. They feel tied to presence, to people who spent so much time here that the building still carries their imprint. It's not a place where spirits seem trapped. It's a place where they seem comfortable, like the still part of the crowd, long after the music stops and the lights go out. What I love about the Central is that it feels alive in a way most bands really don't anymore. It's loud, it's worn, it's full of personality, and it carries its history like a badge. You can feel the decades in the floorboards, the walls, the stage, even the air. This place has absorbed more stories than anyone could ever count. And that stage has seen some things. Long before Seattle became a music capital, those bands played here when they were still just names on a chalkboard. Their sound shook these walls, filled this room, and left an energy behind that never really faded. You can still feel it when you stand near the stage. That low hum of something creative, restless, and alive. Maybe that's part of why the spirits linger. The places that hold this much emotion, this much noise, joy, heartbreak, and electricity. They don't just go quiet when the lights turn off. They keep a charge. They hold on to the people who pass through them, whether those people meant to leave a mark or not. And the Central doesn't feel like a place where anyone is trapped. It feels like a place people return to, a place that still feels like home, even when those who aren't walking through the door anymore. The Central Saloon is one of those rare bars where the past isn't something you read about, it's something you feel. It's like the creak of the balcony, the shift of the air in the back hallway, the echo of a single note on an empty stage. And if you spend enough time here, you start to understand why some people never really walk out the door. Thanks for joining me tonight at the Central Saloon, a place where Seattle's past isn't just remembered, it's still very much alive. From the balcony watcher to the quiet footsteps in the back hallway, from the echoes of early grunge to the spirits that never quite left. This bar carries more history in its walls than most buildings see in a lifetime. Next, we're heading back up to the Pike Place Market to a bar with a view and a long history, and a few spirits of its own. A place where the waterfront air mixes with old stories and where the market's energy doesn't quite settle when the crowds go home. We're going to the Athenian, and I'll meet you there.